Hi, my name is Alan Wiseman. About a few years ago, I wrote a book that became an international bestseller. It's in 34 languages, including Chinese. It's called The World Without Us. And in this book, I imagined what would happen if suddenly our species disappeared. How would nature behave or recover if it was relieved of the daily pressures that we are constantly putting on it? And it turns out that nature has marvelous recuperative powers, and it comes back extremely beautifully, and it even refills niches that we have inadvertently emptied by killing off all of its species. The reason that I did this was not because I want a world without us, but because I want one with us. I hope that readers would see this picture of a beautiful, restored planet and say, how do we add ourselves back into the picture? Only this time in harmony with the rest of nature, not in mortal combat with it, as we seem to be these days. And my plan at the end of the book was to talk about how we might do that, but I ran into an obstacle. And that was the disturbing fact that every 4 days or so we add 1 million more people to the planet. And that clearly is not a sustainable number. So at the end of the book, instead, I left a question hanging asking, should we do something about this? Should we do something as dramatic and drastic as China tried with the one-child policy? And even though that policy makes many people very uncomfortable, including in China, of course, many readers everywhere I went wanted to talk about that. So much so that I finally decided to write another book that looked at that question, and that's this book, Countdown. And the message of Countdown all boils down into 4 questions. How many people can fit on this planet without tipping it over, without destabilizing it? Second, how much nature do we have to preserve in order to guarantee our own survival? Can we even know which species are essential to us, or will we not know that until we lose one? Third, if the one-child policy of China makes so many people uncomfortable, is there anything in the cultures or the histories or the experiences of other places on Earth that have come up with alternatives? Something that would make it acceptable within their culture for people to, in times of need, have fewer children and decide that that was the best thing for them. And fourth, if we are going to have to shrink below the number of people we have now because it's too many for the safe future of our planet, how do we design an economy that will allow us to prosper without constant growth? At least 2 people who I interviewed told me that those were the most important questions on Earth. But they would probably be impossible to answer. And my response was, as a journalist, if someone tells me these are the most important questions on Earth, we had better try. The Chinese edition of Countdown begins with a letter to my Chinese readers, in which I say that during the weeks I spent in your country, as I spoke to people who designed and implemented the one-child policy, and to those who have urged that it be eased or even ended, and to those who have simply lived under it, I began to understand how much the world owes the Chinese people, because your experience has so much to teach us. China's lessons will prove crucial as the world increasingly deals with the consequences of what I discovered while researching Countdown. That Aside from microbial blooms, our species is currently undergoing the most abnormal population spurt in the history of biology. For reasons that you will read, this demographic surge began during the 19th century, and then it exploded in the 20th century, when our numbers amazingly quadrupled. As scientists in many countries explained to me,